Hey, everybody. We're a little bit late. I think that's because, maybe this show is cursed from the get-go because we're talking about sinners. And here I have some fine church-going folks tonight to talk about Ryan Coogler's latest film. I know, right? I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson, the Spoiler Room podcast, and many other things. Not Spoiler Room, sorry.
Cinephile Hissy Fit.
Cinephile Hissy Fit. I'm looking at Mark. I'm looking at Don. The red, and the red.
Right?
I'm distracted. Okay, Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast. Mark, the movie man Krawcheck, aka Exhaust Pipe. You'll come to us to understand what that means in short order. Of the Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room podcast. Got it right that time.
Hey.
And Jeff York of the establishingshot.org and Pipeline Artists. Welcome, gentlemen. To a discussion that, if you told me last year I'd be having this conversation, I wouldn't have believed you because this is at least, I think, the third new release this year that I have gone to the theater and watched and come away loving. And it's the third genre film.
Thank goodness!
Right. See? Okay.
We had so many moments on this show where
Hallelujah.
high hopes, and then Ian's like, dang this movie, yeah.
Seriously, I don't know what I need to correct the record. I was going to correct the record. I did not see Companion in the theater, but it was in the theater like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And the Novocaine, both Jack Quaid movies, and then Sinners. And folks, I don't know how exactly you feel about this, Jeff. I kind of know how you feel, but it's going to be hard for another movie to come along. I know we've got 8 months left in the year, but to come and knock this thing off the pedestal, because all 2 hours and 17 minutes of this movie, I sat in a packed IMAX theater on a Saturday, like a 6:30 show, with a very engaged audience, and it's like we all remembered what movies were like. The shared experience of seeing a talented filmmaker telling a detailed story about real characters with bona fide themes, and there was applause at the end. People stayed all the way to the post credits. And especially folks, it's not an exaggeration to say, I think Richard Roper tweeted this out earlier today saying to stick around for Sinners mid-credit sequence because it's one of the best ever. And I have to agree. It's a reason to stick around. It's the coda for the film. You could have tacked this on to the end, but they kind of buried it. It's a treasure for the people who are sticking around.
Do you wish, this is getting ahead of the skis here, do you wish the mid-credits was the post-credits and the post-credits was the mid-credits? I kind of do.
Well, first of all, I want to say we've got the spoiler banner on, so heed that. No, not you, Don. I'm talking to the audience. So if you haven't seen Sinners,
I wasn't detailed. I'm just saying, would you switch the two? I would switch the two.
Honestly, and I want to get the read on this. The true post-credit sequence, a little musical bit in the church. It's nice.
Let that be your coda to the credits.
But why was it there? I don't know.
That's why I'm saying switch.
No, I'm not saying switch. I'm saying exit. Because
probably. Yeah.
To me, it's like you wait. You don't even have a mid-credit sequence. You wait all the way to the end, and then you give this lovely 8 minutes or however long it goes on, seen as a true reward for people who stuck around. But we are getting way out ahead of our skis here. So no, it's
you brought it up.
I did.
Okay.
I'm just glad to have you back on the show, and I have many questions for you, sir.
Okay.
It's a horror movie. I mean, it's
I know
technically a horror movie, but it's
horror movie,
I came home and I was beaming, and I described this movie to my wife, a film that she will probably never watch.
Same, my wife won't touch it. Yeah,
right. I said it is a romantic historical crime drama in which vampires appear. It is, you could lop off. It's kind of like, and I'm going to say it, the comparison point is From Dusk Till Dawn, the Tarantino Rodriguez movie from 1996. Lot of parallels. And honestly, when I finally found out what this movie was about, I got a little nervous. I'm like, I don't really want to see that. But what I realized, because I'm a pretty big fan of From Dusk Till Dawn, because I was peak Tarantino Rodriguez era. But this is a better film. It's a real, genuine movie that has all of the thrills and the guts and the splatter and the surprises if you don't know what you're in for. that From Dusk Till Dawn did, but I think it's much stronger in just about every regard.
Well,
where was I going with this? Don't know.
I'd argue I'd argue that they would be two different films with two different intentions, and that's why
That's true too.
So as far as if you want to just go apples to apples as far as a movie goes, yes, Sinners is the better of the two type of stories. The thing is, Tarantino wasn't going for what Sinners was going for with this film. It's
Right.
completely different intention. It was more of the ode to the exploitation films from start to finish that Tarantino had, whereas this is more of a, I mean, you literally could take the vampires and replace them with the Klan, which we do have at the end, but you could easily just replace them with the Klan, and you'd have just as strong a story.
Look, I
got
agree.
a bottle movie of how we get out of this place with surrounded by Klan.
But here's the thing: I'm not talking thematically or figuratively. I'm talking literally. You have a film about two criminal brothers who wind up in this, it's a brothel, a den of iniquity, or whatever, or a juke joint, where they discover that there are vampires around and they have to fight their way out with a collection of people. You even have some of the same character beats and deaths. I mean, you could map structurally both films on top of each other, and they're just about identical in terms of the beats. But you're right; they do have the same different aims, and I think that's one of the things that does set Sinners apart. Because I mean, even From Dusk Till Dawn, as an homage to genre films, it is kind of clunky in parts. It does stop to have long, weird conversations, kind of like Shaun of the Dead does. In the middle of the apocalypse, they've got grieving speeches about mom and all this other stuff. But we don't have to get off on all that. But Don, the other thing I wanted to ask about. Because you are Mr. Anti-Trailer.
I'm very anti-trailer.
I don't know if I've asked you this before. When a movie comes out and you watch it, do you ever go back and watch the trailer and be like, that's how they promoted it?
I do. And I'm always, I feel more often than not justified that I skipped it. I like, oh, yep, that kind of does show too much. I'm glad I skipped it. I knew this was a vampire movie. I knew it was coming.
How did you know, though?
You can the log line of what this is. And I think there's always those splash images of like, I think I saw an image in the press for things of like, that Michael, one half of Michael B. Jordan turned, and then I think there was that picture going around early in like Stinger TV spots of Haley Steinfeld turned. So I knew, well, at least two people are going to get turned. I didn't know where it was going to go after that. If anything, I'm more surprised that it's, all this music and whatnot around it. So I think I probably, expectations are what I really try to avoid. But at the same time, I probably watch Sinners checking my watch, like, when the fucking vampire is going to show up? I'm sorry. Just like that kind of thing. So like, when's the other shoe going to fall? And I'm glad it fell when it did, in pacing wise and all that. So I'm not unpleased at how it turned out, but I do go back and watch the trailers and feel good about missing them. Yeah.
Well, I want to say something because I had two experiences with the trailers. The earliest ones, I want to say I started seeing late last year, like the true teaser that give absolutely nothing away about this movie, except that it is Michael B. Jordan in some kind of a period piece. He's playing twins, and for some reason, he's shooting a machine gun at us in the audience. And that's it. And it's Sinners coming from Ryan Coogler, right? Yeah. But then the last trailer I saw, which was in front of some other genre film probably last month, it was Haley Steinfeld again, folks. Spoilers. I'm going to spoil Companion too, so if you haven't watched that, turn away. But Haley Steinfeld, there's that bit where she's vamped out. She says, "We're going to kill every last one of you." I'm like, oh, it's a vampire movie. And then I was kind of like, I wish I hadn't known that. But it's I think I'd like to say that Ryan Coogler's next film, it's going to be a name alone, like James Cameron. Or Jordan Peele, where it's like, it doesn't matter what it's about, they're going to show up. So you don't have to give things like that away. I hope so. Well, the reason I bring up Companion is I was watching TV the other night and I saw at HBO Max, like, hey, look at all the stuff that's coming at HBO Max, Companion. And the first thing they show from it is Jack Quaid saying, "You're a robot." I'm like,
yeah. I still get spoiled, even avoiding the things I do. But I take it with a grain of salt, and I try to just be like, well, just go for the ride, see where it takes you.
It's hard to
I'm
turn
trying to
on
think the last really big heartbreaking spoil I got was I can't think of it right now, like something that was really, really, really spoiled. Probably a Marvel thing, where something came early enough, probably a cameo that I overheard, and I'm like, oh,
I got I got the biggest spoiler ever, and it was back when The Force Awakens came out. There were rumors of it, but it wasn't confirmed. But someone in a completely unrelated Star Wars post, wasn't even related, showed a picture of Han Solo with a blade through him, and it said, Han Solo is killed by his son, Darth. And I'm like, they literally in one sentence and one picture completely spoiled the entire thing that was rumored, but it wasn't confirmed, so you weren't sure. And then one in a completely unrelated thread, and I was just like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
I know.
You'd have to live in a
memes will do it,
in a cave to miss the fact that it's out there, not only as fans but critics. It's going to come out, whether it's a log line, a blurb on Twitter, somewhere else. But what I think, to your point, Don, that you've lived by for many years, and Ian was talking about as well, and I dare say one of the reasons I love both Companion and Sinners was I did not see the previews. I knew that this, in fact, we talked about it last week. I had heard that there was, that it was sort of like a vampire period piece. And somebody told me, or somewhere I read, that Haley Steinfeld was playing against type. So I thought, I guess she's the vampire. I didn't know if there were many others, but I didn't see the trailer. I saw a couple of pictures of them in costume and the period and stuff. You can't avoid that. I mean, unless you literally live in a cave for 6 months, because it's out there shooting now. Ryan Coogler's new movie Sinners, blah blah blah. Oh, they're playing twins. Okay, but it's best to avoid the trailers, because even if they're well done, they give too much away.
They do. They really do.
And even the teaser trailers. You watch the teaser trailer. 9 times out of 10, they're going to have that money shot in it, because they know that's what the studio's banking on. And a lot of people love that, and the studios love it because, that's what we spent for. They're going to want to come to the theater to see that shot. And there it is.
You should
Harrison
put teaser
Ford with the knife.
You should put teaser in quotes, because teaser trailers are now literally 2 minutes before. I mean, look at the Megan 2. This is the whole thing. Is like,
oh my God, they show everything in Megan 2. It's ridiculous.
With the name. Ryan is going to bring it in, so all you have to put is the name. It's like with Marvel; they don't necessarily need to do an extended trailer. They literally just have to say, "New Marvel film. Here's what's in it," and they will get butts in the seats.
Like this is a blatant one where just you have to hide under a rock, but like just the existence of Red Hulk. They build it in the movie to be such a perfect surprise if you were to leave it alone and hide it. If you have people with Harrison Ford, you have people with a Captain America movie. It's the first Marvel movie in the year after Deadpool and Wolverine. You don't need to try that hard, and we could have melted our faces with Red Hulk, but nope.
And you can tell they set that up, and I promise, folks, we'll get back to Sinners in a moment. But this is because this is kind of like the seed of the movie going experience. How we hear about these things. But no, you can tell watching Captain America that was supposed to be a setup for he's getting his pills from the mind man or whatever he is. But they're actually gamma radiation, and oh my God, it would have been great. But
what I don't understand, can I just say this real fast, Ian?
Yeah.
And I hope that studios listen to this at some point, because it's a very good show. But we talk about this enough. And we often will rewrite movies, and I know that's a little bit easy and arrogant of critics and such. But I will say this, as somebody who's in marketing, and you guys all are very familiar with it and know it very well, Ian, you know it better than most too. There are so many other ways they can do these things that have a cleverness to it. I mean, who's not going to go see Megan 2 if they like Megan? So why give away the entire movie? Right. Just have her come on and say, I'm back, and this time I'm an adult.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, that's all I need. Megan 2.0, the new, and then have her do the dance, but now she's an adult, and she goes like, here I come, OnlyFans, or something like that, which would be a nice pun too. I just riff that, but that's a better trailer than the one they showed that shows the entire damn movie, and it doesn't look that promising. So maybe I don't know.
Like the FOMO is we still live in a big enough FOMO culture, even with digital, short screening windows and dropping out like 17 days and all this stuff we complain about. There's still enough FOMO where if you hide a big enough secret, or you at least hint that you have a big thing you want to show people, they'll come out. Even if a movie's going to be on streaming in 45 days, they'll come out because you've generated the buzz of a surprise, not by hiding it, then just saying, oh, can't you wait for this big thing you saw in the trailer? Like, if you can do it right. Like, what's the old T2 trailer where they like rebuild Arnold and it's the only thing you see is like the one eye that lights up red? Like, it's not even in the movie, but it was enough that's all you needed was the machines are back, Arnold's back, holy crap, here we go. T2. And
I know that there was one of the teasers for T2, and that is a great campaign, was this time there are two. And this like what is that? And I think they had hints of like maybe that there would be a good Terminator. So like, what is that about? True. But I'm happy to say that even though I despise the trailer for Sinners, the latest one that gives way too much away, it is one of those films that you can't have it spoiled enough in terms of the sheer plot, like I mentioned, the kind of from dusk till dawn elements, and have it ruin the movie, because it is so not that. Like, I want to say it's like an hour, almost an hour and a half, I feel, of the build up to the point where they get to the vampires, as we were kind of mentioning before, and what that leads up to is this fascinating period crime drama, 1932.
Yes.
Clarksville, Mississippi, I want to say.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a small town. It's a prominent, like a minority town with and the whites who live there apparently all Klan, it seems like. And they have these two brothers, Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan, in one of the most convincing. I mean, I can't believe this is a $90 million movie, and they had better CGI and better immersion for this trick than the $250 million Marvel movies that are out there. But it's like the Winklevoss twins from The Social Network. Like, you get them together, and if this were Michael B. Jordan's first role, you'd be like, oh, who are those twin brothers? They're amazing. Kind of like what happened with Armie Hammer, who we're not going to talk about anymore. But they play these criminal brothers who come back from Chicago. And, they're kind of the small town boys, not exactly making good, but they're coming back and they've got a lot of money to throw around. They want to open up a juke joint. They want to open up a club on the outskirts of town. So they go recruit their family and friends to like, hey, come play music. I need 100 pieces at Catfish and people will fry them up and cook them. We got all this illegal, liquor from up north. We're going to do it up. With the idea of opening up this club. Now, whether or not it's going to be a fly-by-night thing or something that they want to make a staple of the town, that remains to be seen. But the way that we get to know each of the characters in their world, none of it feels cliche. The stuff that's funny is funny. The stuff that feels dangerous is dangerous. And I love that they don't really set up that's a vampire story until the vampires show up and start doing things. There's not like, the mysterious people watching other people at night or anything. No, it's like one long day of hell that starts in the morning. Well, we begin in flashback in the aftermath of what happened. But it's a wonderful movie that we'll talk about in great detail tonight. But I want to lead off. Are we all in agreement that this is a pretty solid film?
Yeah, it's the second fiver I've given this year. Yeah.
What was the first?
Black Bag.
Okay,
that was pretty
good.
Gotta watch
that. Just sharp as a tack to me. So,
all right.
I think this will be an Oscar contender. It's the first one that we can probably say that about this year, across the board. I mean, I think certainly in categories of production design, costume, score, editing, cinematography, things like that, of course. But I think it's also going to get Coogler a nomination for his script and probably direction. It might get, I think if they're going to go with 10 again, I think it'll get a Best Picture nomination. It's gotten critical hosannas. It's making money. It's an important film. It says so much about history. And it's also, I said to Don earlier, and I said this in my review, it's this incredible combination, and there's not too many of them come down the pike, of being both art house and movie. It has this intelligence to it, this sensitivity, this character development that you see in smaller films. And yet when it goes big, it goes movie big,
Mhm.
and it's pretty impressive. And one little thing I'll just say that I knew we were in the hands of something really good right off the bat. And it's just a nod to what you said when they introduced the two characters standing side by side and they exchanged the cigarette,
Amazing.
which is done incredibly deftly. But you know what makes it genius? And this is where Coogler's like, I got to do something even better than just that, because they usually cut that, or you can see the thing there. The smoke travels from one person to the other without anything seeming amiss. It's like that is not only showing off, but hot damn, it's a good trick.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Mark, what did you think of Sinners?
Oh, I loved it. I put it right up there with Companion as probably my two favorite horror films of the year. I don't see those two changing, seeing what's coming out, just on the slate as far as just overall best picture as well. It didn't quite get a 5, but I was talking for our Patreon show. I was talking to Katie and the horror miser Lamont about it, and they looked a little confused for me, because I'm like, some of the shots in the beginning, like when they were driving through the field and that, looked very rough. There were parts where it looked like stuff was kind of out of focus except for the main actors. But I think I think it might have been either the way the projectionist, because we don't really have projectionists anymore, they may have set it up, or it's the conversion because of the IMAX, because they saw it in IMAX and they said it looked visually gorgeous. For me, when you get to the juke joint parts in that, looked gorgeous. Those outside shots in the beginning when they're traveling through the cornfield and that looked a little composited, a little rough, but I think it's because of the conversion rate.
They do a deep focus in IMAX, which allows the backgrounds to be very crisp and pure, even though they're far away. When it converts to a normal thing, even if it's laser, like they're bragging about now in theaters like that, it loses some of that sharpness because it's been shot on an IMAX camera and it's converted. Same thing happened. I know this is going many, many years back, but they shot Coraline originally on a 3D camera. And if you saw in 3D, you could say, wow, I mean, that thing looks like it's 50 feet behind her. And it's just a garden. It's probably like 5 feet on this, little table that they're shooting at. But when it was converted to the 2D, which they did in some places, and I saw it in both 3D and 2D, the 2D was a step down, even though it's still beautiful.
Sure.
It's not It's not ideally presented.
Well, that's unfortunate. This is, the rare movie where I will implore people to go out and see it in IMAX, or at least a premium, like big format theater, if they have the ability, because it is, immersive is a cliche, but it's also a very effective way to describe this movie.
For sure.
But yeah, outside of that, I mean, me being a big blues guy, I likened it a bit to like After Dark meets Crossroads with Ralph Macchio, not with Britney Spears, with Ralph Macchio.
Sure.
I'm not sure you get much by the better comparison there, Mark. Go ahead.
I'd watch either of those, by the way.
I know, but I mean, it's similar. It's similar to that, because Crossroads, I think, is underappreciated for what the story is and what they were trying to do for back in the day. It was interesting. It was an original take. It has a little bit of a similar theme, where music is at its core. And that's what you have here. And that's what I love. I'm a big band geek too. And I would play jazz in high school, 4 years. We did quartet stuff and blues stuff. And so when I saw what the soundtrack was going to be for this film, I'm like, okay, I'm in. And then everything after that, the way they set up this world, and they do it he crafts it very gradually. And I think that's what also helps get you prepared for the vampire part, because he slowly eases you into the supernatural elements and rules in this world without exposition, but just visually. When Stack goes sees the grave of his kid, or is that Smoke?
That was
daughter,
It's Smoke.
No, that was Smoke.
Smoke.
Yeah.
When Smoke goes and he meets his wife there, who's a what would be considered a witch or whatnot, they work the voodoo priestess. The voodoo priestess. Thank you. Well, I wasn't quite sure if she was a full priestess or not. I wasn't sure if she was full priestess or not. That's why I just didn't want to say. Right. Because
a Sith. Yeah.
She practiced, but I didn't want to put her full priestess mode. But
of course,
she practiced, and there were some sound effect things like he did, like kind of a deep hum like there was power, like when Miles was singing, when Sammie was singing in the car, they had given that pre-law, that kind of setup of how there's people who play music who are so good they pierce the veil between life and death, and they have magic to their music. And then we don't really get much of that until Sammie starts singing his song in the car, and you get this deep hum of sorts, just a slight deep hum, and you see Michael B. Jordan react to it, his character react to it like something very special, more so than just a normal song. And then later on we get the voodoo priestess, and you get kind of that same sound again, only you're working a little bit more of those elements in, so you're establishing that there is some supernatural elements. So by the time we get to vampire, which is like an hour and a half in, you buy into it, because you're now not only immersed in these characters, but you've got enough elements to go, okay, this exists in this world.
Yeah.
Ian, can I build on that for just a second? Because I think Mark makes a very salient point. It seems like it's a slow burn. In some respects, maybe it is. But what it not only does is set us up a lot of themes, a lot of the racist themes, a lot of the music themes, the past and the present converging in the mastery of music, and the fact that music has this power that even scares religion, because blues is a different kind of use of talent, if you will, and it's a little more visceral, it's a little more dark. So that's interesting, but also it's a masterful job of setting up these characters so we care about them. One of my complaints always about horror movies is that the characters who end up being victims are so disposable because you don't invest in them. They don't have real personalities, and they seem to be coming on screen just to be, okay, it's girl number 6 who gets killed, and doofus guy who trying to get laid who gets killed probably second after the dog. Those cliches. And this is like, no, we want you to invest in all these characters, from the local Chinese shopkeepers to Delta Slim, which I didn't even know. And this is one of the things you get when you don't see the trailers. Like, oh my God, Delroy Lindo's in this movie. It's already exponentially better than it would have been just because you have that incredible actor. And he's given a lot to do. And his introduction scene goes on for 10 minutes. And it's like, oh my God. But then when he comes in, he has the important things to do in the last hour. It has weight to it because we've invested in this character, because the film has given so much time to developing them.
Well, it's
I think the other thing is,
sorry, go ahead.
I'll build one more wing to the museum you were talking about here. As you also have the setting built, like you see the start of that juke joint, and like you have all of those musical combinations of people in the bar and the music, and what Delta can do, what Preacher Boy can do. Like, you've built all of the what music can do part to it, and what the juke joint is, and like every boundary and corner of that place, because they did such a great tour of like the night, the opening night, like you tour that place like crazy. And of course there's that massive virtuoso sequence of just the existential bringing of history into one scene, and it's damn near a oneer, where like that's, by the time you do that, you're like, I am immersed in character, setting, place, myth, everything. Like, it's your fever pitch of like in tuneness to what's happening, and you're gonna lose people next. And you're right, it hits
well
hard.
It's a masterclass in world building is what he does. Huge. Because and it helps with the talent, because these characters feel like characters, like people, like actual people at that time. Whether and even the minor characters, even if you boil down to it, because Haley Steinfeld really is kind of in a supporting role, but her character and the side characters and the folks that we get, Cornbread in that as well, they all feel like real people, not just people being introduced to be fodder later on in the film. Even though we don't get a whole lot with them, it's just their presence and the performance and the dialogue with it. It feels real. These feel.
Well, I think the two most important scenes that have nothing to do with music or vampires are meeting our two ex-women, the two old flames, like that train platform conversation with Haley Steinfeld. And then you're right, the voodoo shop side of the kid's grave conversation, and obviously love scene with Wunmi, so like when you put those two vitally important conversations, one, bring in women into the movie and that perspective and all the pieces and parts that will go with that, but then you learn so much more about those brothers because they have this old flame history, and it's more than just I'm bringing my stack of money, let's make a juke joint. I have roots here, and it's painful stuff and difficult stuff, and you need that to just warm those characters even further.
Well, on top of that, I mean, when Smoke goes to visit, I think it's Annie, his
I'm trying to say
wife.
the actress's name. My bad. Sorry.
No, it's glad that
Yeah.
I'm glad to you remember, right? Because I only knew her from she played one of the TVA, the head TVA
That's
enforcer.
right.
yeah, that's where
That's
she
right.
is.
in Loki,
Okay, that
right?
was
But she's she's tremendous here. What I love about that her Annie and Smoke's relationship is we've seen that play out 1,000 times in movies. The guy who comes back to town to connect with his old flame, and she's like yelling at him, and you're no good. You walk down all that stuff. That the relationship is much more complicated, partially because they had a son together who died very, very young, and so there's a tenderness, there's a hurt. There's the whole idea of like, this guy is a killer who worked for the Capone outfit in Chicago and has probably done a lot of horrible things to people. And also another layer. I'm sorry, I'm getting off tangent because I could be wrong here, but I think the screenplay for this movie is going to be studied and broken apart for decades to come, because there's so much that we find out throughout the movie that informs events that happen later in the movie. That whole machine gun thing that I mentioned earlier, that's in the trailers. The Moore brothers, Smoke and Stack, they fought in World War I, and they talk about we've been all over the world, and we've done we've seen every different way a man can die. I'm like, okay, where's the miniseries?
the story of Smoke and Stack. Yeah, the story of Smoke and Stack.
Right.
Yeah.
But they have these complicated relationships with these women, and you get to see their tender side, but there's also that kind of element of danger. And of course, we know it's set up later in the juke joint vampire takeover scene where Annie does the whole thing of like, if they get me, you gotta kill me before I turn. Like, okay, but guess what? They tweak it a bit, because we always see, and they did this From Dusk Till Dawn, 1,000 other vampire movies, the person always turns.
I know.
They get bit, they turn, and then you had to do the painful thing. She gets staked before that can happen as an act of mercy. And what I loved is that it was Stack who bit her, and she was like, as she's being eaten, essentially, she's like, "Not you, not you." It's essentially her brother-in-law. It's a big betrayal, and she knows what that is doing to Smoke, who's helpless to watch this.
And then, like you said, like normally in movies you wait too long and it turns because we want that special effect makeup moment, or the actors or actress gets their moment to turn into a vampire in a movie, and then then maybe they get staked. But like by saving her, but by killing her early before a turn, look how that affected the vampires. They're like, we missed one, and that was the one we wanted. Like, it affected Jack O'Connell and the gang too. Like that, we don't see that effect in the movie. So in most vampire movies, so that was a fun little like, we needed all of you, and now I don't get that one. That's kind of the one I wanted, and you remove a little bit of that too. So yeah.
By the way, Ian, to your point about this screenplay will be studied, they could probably do parallel classes on what it could be studied for, not just the layering of events and history and the way they're divvied out, not always in the front section for exposition, but later to regards like the World War I things, or even the Capone connection and some of those things. They are sinners. They easily shoot two white men in the or two guys in the leg. And then also I would say there's the other fact of, and one is sort of societal, the other is genre, but Coogler also lays out very cleverly the idea of fear and dread of bad events coming that helps set up horror, and not necessarily just vampire stuff. There's always a tinge of danger around when they go by the chain gang, and the old piano player calls out to them, and they kind of look at him. They're in danger always a little bit, like they can't really quite escape this presence around them. And grant you that sort of dovetails, of course, right into the historical thing. Yes, they're dealing with the horrors of literal vampires coming out at night to come after them and want them as their victims or brothers or whatever you want to call it. But again, they're also dealing with this sense of danger around them the whole time. When they go to take the sawmill over and buy it, they're not sure that guy's on the up and up. And of course he isn't on the up and up, but they're smart enough to know that he's already a threat to them. So long before the vampires come into play, the main character.
Oh,
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Jeff,
did you freeze? Did he freeze for anyone else?
He
did
did
freeze,
freeze for me too.
Okay.
He snaps back.
Oh no.
I guess
In a
from
smiling face, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not bad.
Can you hear me?
We've
Oh,
been
we're
frozen in
back.
worse places. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
that was
you're
you.
back. Okay, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Jeff. Thank you.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, they've all dealt with a lot of bad things and monsters, if you will, around their whole worlds, far more than just this one night. So, I mean, it's an interesting sort of way of them preparing sort of for this terrible thing that's happened, because it's not necessarily that far off of some of the dangers they have to be cognizant of in their everyday lives.
Well,
I'm
sorry, go ahead, Don, please.
If there's one screenplay thing I would shave from this course in class and classicness of it, where we're talking about, I could do without I guess it counts as a framing device to see our guy Preacher Boy with scratched up in church in the morning. Like, I'd take the first 5 minutes off, and just enter.
Movies
enter
love
the
to do
twins
that,
and
though.
go.
That's all
I know.
the flashback. It's like,
I know, like, but then because like, I know it means he makes it out, and we are like, oh, I guess one guy makes it. You're like, you do ruin one piece of peril,
Right?
So, just a little bit. I get why it's there, and it adds to the power of church, and it goes after the introduction of like all the different ways they list music and the devil, and like the pre-credits narration. But like, if you could just jump right to the boy, the brothers showing up and lighting that cigarette, that's all you need, So
I understand where you're coming
it
from,
saved
Don.
me 6 minutes.
But I like that, because let's just say we live in a world without trailers where people encounter movies as they are. It is a great, I think, opening moment of him driving up in that blood red car, and he's completely scratched up, and he goes into the church, and you're like, what? I don't understand what I'm watching. Or what is this movie? I don't know if it's a vampire movie or a crime movie or a werewolf movie.
And especially if we're going to wait an hour and a half for vampires to show up.
Well, you don't know that's the ending either. It could be halfway through. It's just
true.
Movies love to get you like halfway into the narrative, like, ooh, we almost expect it now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I do like that. I do like the bookendedness of it, where it comes back around, and it's the whole idea of, and again, this is where Coogler is playing with this, because conventional, Hollywood movie has him dropping that guitar and joining the church. I've seen the light and everything, but no, he decides to go his own way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's deciding to leave goodness behind, perhaps religiosity. But just because he wants to go off and follow his dreams and play the blues, it doesn't mean that he's going to, burn in hell. He wants to use his music to unite people. And what I love is that Smoke basically tells him that the movie is called Sinners, and the theme is written on every character all throughout the film. They're all given opportunities to do the right thing, and many of them don't, and they're sort of punished for them in that horror movie logic. But when Smoke basically talks to Sammie right before they realize what's happened to Stack in that back room where he's getting bitten and turned, he said, Sammie's like, I'm gonna quit the church. I want to come and bum around with you guys, and I'm gonna go. I think he says, I want to hit the road and go make my music and basically do what you guys do. And Smoke says, if you do that, I'm gonna end you right now, because this is not the life that it's all glamorous and everything, but you need better than that. And I think that is the key to what happens to Smoke in the very end, with that heartwarming and hilarious conclusion to his character, where he's with that Klansman and he's also peering into the afterlife, and the afterlife is staring back in him with tenderness, and then judgment when he does what he has to do. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But there are layeredness to each of these things. And when Sammie decides he's going to do good and take his music on the road and build a life for himself, that's beautiful.
It
But
is.
what
It's-
makes it masterful is that mid-credit sequence where we've
huge.
cut to Chicago 1992 and it's Buddy Guy in the scar makeup that Sammie had, and he's performing, and he goes to a bar, and then in walks Stack and his vampirist mistress,
Mary.
who I don't think she didn't have a line in that whole scene. She was just kind of like the arm candy or whatever. But that was a perfect button to that whole setup, where you realize, again, a lesser movie would have had him be this old man who chased the fame and the fortune and end up kind of like broken and bitter, and then the vampires show up and is like begging to be turned or begging to be killed because my dad was right. It was all hell and brimstone. But no, this movie is much smarter than that. And again, I think you put this at the very end of the credits and take up, as much as I love Miles Caton, I think this is one of the historical star turns for a debut. That last scene could go.
Well, you put that scene and then you make it in a smaller window and you run the credits and you run the credits.
That's your coda before the music
performing, and then you do the final scene. I get what you're saying, Ian. I didn't mind it, but yeah, if you wanted to do it that way, you could do it that way. The ending of this, I mean, with that at the end there, it reminded me a bit of the end of Death Becomes Her. in not a quite a funny way, but in a similar way, in that Bruce Willis's character didn't choose immortality. He chose to live life to his fullest and do the best he can without living, he lived more than the immortals did. Right. And so here is what you have as well. You have Sammie, who you get the feeling, he lived and did everything he really wanted to do, and he's okay with passing, especially with the fact that he's sick, which we get that wonderful scene where he sniffs, and for me, one thing I love, especially being a music, jazz and blues guy, is there's one fan moment in here that Ryan Coogler, which mad props to him. He's like, I got Buddy Guy in my film. I'm gonna have him play as much as possible.
Oh, I know.
So when you get that scene where they hand him have him play that one song just before they leave, you look at Haley Steinfeld and Michael B. Jordan. They're not their characters anymore. They're Haley Steinfeld and Michael B. Jordan, because especially Haley being the music person, watching this legend play live in front of them. You could see it, the way they smiled there. It was just like, and I was with them there. I'm like, and I'm just imagining this entire crew behind the camera just sitting there enjoying this moment, because you don't get to where you get him by himself, this blues legend, playing this song just beautifully, and you're just like, and that's like a wonderful end to this just that bookend, and that they leave him alone. I liked that, because I was like, okay, that tells you more about the character of these two. They're more than just the vampires that we saw.
Well, let's talk about the vampires that we saw, because you've got Remick, played by was it Jack O'Connell?
Jack O'Connell.
We first see him. It's a great introduction, because you can tell he's sort of falling out of the sky, and he's smoking because the sun is going.
The sun's out.
The sun's out. It's going down, but you're like, what's happening here? And then he comes across this little shack with these two people, and then it turns out that they're clan. And he's like, "You got to let me in. There's these Choctaw who are chasing me." And you think that it's just a ruse to get him to get into a shelter before, because the sun's still out. But no, he's actually being pursued. The Choctaw show up, and our clan couple, wave the gun around and everything. And the guy who's the head of the group, he says, "Well, we're looking for somebody. I hope that if he shows up here, you don't invite him into your house, because that would be a terrible idea. Me and my friends, we're just gonna go, because we don't like to hang around after dark, if you know what I mean." And of course, the lady goes back into the shack, and her husband's been eaten, and she turns into a vampire. And they show up, this trio of Remick and the two victims, clan victims, as a trio of musicians trying to get into the juke joint. And the reason that Remick wants to obtain Sammie's power and turn him so he can become a vampire musician is because Remick's lonely. Apparently, like the vampire population is not very big and it's kind of spread all over the place. So he needs someone who can put up that beacon to summon other people. And he wants to sort of start a church. Now it's kind of a goofy idea of a vampire religious service. And we do get once most of the people who leave the juke joint after they're told to, and they all get turned into a vampire. That's where you get your great Night of the Living Dead moment where they're kind of converging on the building. But they have a great scene where they're all out dancing and swaying and really getting into it. And you realize they're kind of forming this family. And Remick loves it. And he's desperate. It's not just, oh, these people are food, or I want power, or I'm angry at God, or whatever it is. He's been around for a long time, as evidenced by the gold coins that he offers to Mary, Haley Steinfeld's character, when she goes out to see what they're all about. Wait, hold on a second. We have Katie.
Ooh.
Hello.
There we go.
Welcome to the end of the show.
Oh, well, we got time.
Well, some of us do. I gotta get the bed.
Oh.
No, how you doing, Katie? Hello? Are you going to talk?
Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. So we're talking about Sinners. What did you think of the movie?
I love the movie. It's one of my, and I don't know what's, it feels like there's some sort of like repeat thing going on. It's one of my favorites of the year, and like 9.5 out of 10. That's
just about where I'm at too. I think it's just about perfect. But yeah, there's a couple of tweaks, but that's without any movie, you know. But I was talking about something I completely got thrown off. I don't know.
But why he wanted to use the music to get sort of a tribe, if you will, or a congregation, I think might be the word you were looking for.
Right. And there was this weird sense of kind of religiosity, but they don't get into what he believes, or what vampires are in terms of the cosmic struggle between good and evil. They just kind of exist, and they've been around for a long time. And I love that when we see the gold coins that he offers up to Mary, we get a glimpse that they are gold coins and are kind of large. And she mentions something about like there's weird writing on them. So we're wondering, are these like from Rome or something? How long have these, as Remick, been wandering around looking for his people? There's a lot of great questions that aren't answered, but not in a way that you feel like the screenwriter is dodging something, but in the way that you feel like there's more mysteries to be pondered over. I hope there's not a sequel of some kind of this movie. Lord knows they made a bunch of them from dusk till dawn. But that's the last time I'll mention that movie tonight. But no, I love that the vampires in this movie, they obey a lot of the rules of the traditional movie vampire, but there are some kind of, I don't know if they're dodges or what. And I want to get your thoughts on this. Vampires can't enter a residence, or I guess a place of business, unless they're invited in by the person who owns it. So Mary gets in, and then she leaves. But then it feels like she can't get. Is it just the one time you have to be invited in every time? Because I feel like I've seen movies where you get invited in, that's kind of carte blanche to come back. I think Fright Night did that, where Jerry Dandridge got invited in by the mother, and then he's like, "I expect to see. You're going to see a lot of me around this summer, Charlie." And the other thing is, when Stack is in that kind of closet or back office, and he's turned. And then he's like, "Hey, everybody, let me out." And there's a whole conversation by the door. He eventually breaks the door down. But my question is, what was keeping him in there? Was there something keeping him in there? Or I was confused by that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more the ploy of let me out this way so that I can, take advantage of you instead of attack mode. Like
he a lot easier. I got almost that he couldn't get out initially because he didn't want to. He was trying to lure the people in necessarily. He didn't want to necessarily get out. He was trying to get people to open the door so he could jump and pull someone in and bite them or something along that lines, more so than just get out of the room. And then once he did break through, he was compelled to leave as well. And then
I think he still thought he was a little bit of their friends and family,
right.
too. So it wasn't like they were the enemy. I mean, I think to a large degree, that's the true of a lot of the conversions here is, I mean, to your very point about, an Irish person in the 30s would want to feel like he belonged somewhere too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's about fellowship. It's about belonging. It's about what can bind us together, be it music, be it spiritualism, be it community, maybe being the oppressed. And I think maybe for Stack is he was feeling that he was still amongst his friends and he wanted to, he regarded them as that maybe a little bit more than just entirely this person who's sort of gone to the dark side, if you will, by the vampire bite.
Yeah. Solid. Yep.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Katie, you and I, we mentioned it about the rules of the vampires. By following the traditional rules, though, we save on exposition, which this film saves on a lot of exposition. I know some people who have been kind of critical saying, oh, how is this original? They're traditional vampires. I'm like, yeah, but there are rules enough to where you don't need to spend a whole lot of time to one, establish how they die, and two, I mean, you're familiar with it, and the story's not about the vampires necessarily. And the problem with the vampire argument is he's got evil, he's going about it an evil way, but he's got some intentions of he just wants everybody to be a family because they've got the hive mind.
Little Lost Boys there, yeah.
There's a little bit of Lost Boys in here. So,
but it's also very clever in that while they cannot help themselves once they're bitten, they are really only villains at night and through happenstance, versus the other villains that are throughout the story, and that is the white community that allows to be sort of monstrous during the day, night, anytime they want, and it's all accepted, and they don't even have to be invited in. They can feel like they can enter anytime, because even if they sold you the old mill as a juke joint, we're going to take it back from you that night because we don't want you to have anything. And I think that sort of makes the villains, even when they're vampires, or even when he's the head guy, he's not quite as vicious and as worthy of being called the villain in this as in a lot of other vampire movies, where that would be easily the clearest bad guy and everything else. I think he's actually pitiable for a number of reasons, even for just wanting to sort of share in this great music as he does when he first approaches them, because he knows the power of it.
Well, and it's also interesting because you think that when he first shows up to the juke joint with his, the other people in his quartet or trio, rather, sorry,
right,
that it's just a ploy to get in and have dinner. But throughout the rest of the film, because they are such a musical group, and Remick is really into this kind of Gaelic culture and some great music, you realize he's truly into this. That's what I'm talking about with Coogler revealing his themes gradually over time throughout the movie, instead of just saying, oh, I'm a music fanboy and a vampire. You realize, no, he's a true believer in this music. And I do want to touch on the racial kind of politics of this. Is it would be very easy. I would call this what I'm about to describe a Jordan Peele version of this movie, where it is very explicit. Like the vampires are the white people, because remember slavery in the Klan, and that is that, but is not writ large. It is part of the fabric of the story in which they live, and I don't think they're, aside from the opening or the early scene where the Moors buy the by the juke joint from the Klansmen. There's a bit of tension there, but we don't get any more scenes of just like regular everyday folk, being derogatory towards this community of like immigrants and former slaves and things like that. Everything is very much kind of segregated, right? It's almost like, aside from the clan, there are two Klansmen living on the outskirts of town in that shack. You've got our head guy who has to drive all the way out to this, the outskirts of town to meet up with Smoke and Stack. You don't get a feeling that there's a lot of integrated living, a lot of interactions. It's just this kind of invisible, hand that's pushing everything down. And I think that telling the story from that angle is much more interesting than just something heavy-handed.
Yes.
I'm getting my hand metaphors mixed up. And on top of that, the idea that Remick, to use another tired cliche, doesn't see color, because what does he do? He gets in and he converts this entire juke joint of people, of minorities, into his fellow brothers and sisters in the dark service of the Dark Lord, or whatever church they're trying to rally. He doesn't care. He wants to be around people, and he wants to be around people that love music, apparently. Katie, jump in. Are you? I can't tell if you're talking.
No, I'm not talking. I'm talking now. I would agree and disagree with that, because Remick is, he's gaslighting everyone, because it's like he's enticing them with the freedom to do everything they can do. But the thing is that to get that freedom, they have to die. And it is a very interesting look at vampirism, because usually with vampires, you have to slit their wrists, have them drink the blood. But this is more of like a zombie vampirism, where it's like as soon as someone gets bit, they immediately become a vampire. It's the whole thing, like, I don't know. It's like, but it's that, it's like, because Mary had the bite on her back. Obviously, she wasn't bled to death, but she had the bite. And then when Cornbread got bit, you see it on his arm, but then you see other people who've gotten bit that are completely bled out, and then when they wake up, they're immediately they're turned into vampires, which that is a very different type of vampirism that you don't normally see. It's usually a seductive thing or a sexy thing, and it's like, these people wronged you, all this stuff. And Remick is doing the same thing. I mean, think of the Irish in the 1930s. It's not like they had a great time coming to America themselves, but the whole thing with Remick is he wasn't. I get what you're trying to say with the building the church, but he was mainly going there because he heard Sammie, and he was doing that for his own selfish reasons. He wanted to see the people that he from the past that he no longer sees. So to get that, it's like, we get to this whole thing, like, come with me, I'll make you mine, all that. But it was basically all for him. And then, do you guys think that when he was in that shack with the couple, did anyone else see the crib and think that maybe he possibly, if there's a different version, this is one thing I'd always want to ask if I ever got a chance to ask Ryan Coogler, that there was a crib in that room when he bit the husband, but did he possibly eat the baby and they had to cut that? Or was she pregnant?
Interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it could have been a mirror to Smoke's story, dead child before the vampire shows up. I mean, I agree, Katie. I'm not saying that Remick is a good guy or that he was doing anything out of altruism, but I am saying that he did use that opportunity to convert people to build the community that he wanted, and he didn't discriminate in that way. Now, it is very interesting that you mentioned, because, and you and Jeff also brought up the whole like Irish thing, and people nowadays be like, well, they were just white. They had institutional power, and like, well, no, it didn't really work that way. I mean, he had a better chance of passing, I guess, than either of Smoke or Stack, but it was much more a complicated dynamic in terms of who was considered white or who had the power in that structure. So I think it's interesting that if it would have been interesting if he had been one of the Klansmen and kind of a good old boy, but no, he shows up. He's not dressed in really nice clothes or anything. He's kind of beat up and haggard and dusty because he just came off the road. We don't know what he was doing with the Choctaws back before we meet them. Was he trying to attack them? Was he just wandering and they sensed like, oh, he's we got to take care of this guy because he's evil?
Oh yeah.
I don't know, but there's so much here that you could write short stories, a TV series about any of the events and people leading up to where we meet them in Sinners, and it would be fascinating.
It would, and I think you mentioned it, and just talking with this group tonight about it, it just made me realize something with it. The whole idea of him being lonely, they do the angle of the hive mind to where the vampires share memories once they're turned. So he's turning for experience, because you get the impression he's been around a while. This is an older vampire. He may have came over a boat as a vampire, even from Ireland, to try to come to the New World, but he hasn't found the same as his own, and he hasn't really had a chance to change other folk yet. I think the Choctaw, he may have, thinking about it as well, tried to go after one of their musical inclined folks, because they do talk about how there's whatever culture, there's usually a musician that can pierce the veil. They're so good. Maybe that's why he was in their realm and they were holding on to him. But I think part of the reason he was turning folks too is because he was experiencing other people, because he was getting more of those experiences, because it could play to the fact that he was alone and he felt alone. And so he's turning people, not only for those experiences, but with that hive mind, thinking, if I turn Sammie and Sammie sings, through Sammie's hive mind with us, I can then see the people that I've lost, because he's old.
So it's like Cerebro from the X-Men.
kind of. But because they do lean into and mention about sharing the memories. And I think that plays a part in it. But just like the visual storytelling, I think where we talked about at the beginning, how this film could be studied, the screenplay, direction could be studied on how to tell things visually without having to give dialogue to explain things. Because as we mentioned, there's a lot of visuals. The segregation of the town that they live in. We get the one side camera angle where we only see one side of town, where it's all the minorities, the Irish and the African Americans and everybody on one side, and those are the experience we see until we have the shopkeeper's daughter go get her mom. Then we do that long tracking shot from the shop where all of the sharecroppers in that are, and we just follow her, and suddenly she goes to the other side, and that whole street is full of white people. And they go into that. And now you've established this town is segregated without giving some kind of exposition or dialogue or saying, oh, we can't go over there because we're such and such. Just by telling that, and the crib and other visual elements in here, to where if you're just paying attention to the screen, you're getting that a picture is 1,000 words type of thing, where you're filling in the blanks. You don't need dialogue to explain the situation, because you've got it right there visually.
Yeah. I think there's something scarier to the idea that this is Will Johnson talking, my podcast partner. Too many things lately we have to get with the exposition and all that, with the over explain or overset like lore. Can't something menacing just show up and be bad? I didn't need Remick, we see end up on the doorstep steaming from the sun, but I didn't need all that much history, or the hints I got are enough. I don't need someone or something to come in and give me all of Remick's backstory. If this was a prestige cable show, maybe 8 episodes, you can go deep, but in a 2-hour movie, just keep it going, and that's all you need.
But
we've overdone lore in other places
and a lot of this stuff to that point, as well as Katie's point, is vampire legends and the rules of vampirism get rewritten for every show and movie to how they want it to do. So if anybody's going to stand on ceremony about, well, that's not how vampires are turned, I can show you 20 places where they're turned exactly that way, and another 300 where they aren't, and it's all depending on the needs of the screenwriter and the time you've got, which is fine. Same with shorthanding basics of it, shorthands of racism, the shorthands of that period. What I love though too is he brings up stuff early on that comes back later, and you're like, why is it important that they were part of Capone and they world travelers and all that? Well, they've got the money, they've got the swagger, they know how to use their power and their threat of violence, which is what they're up against in the South, because that's the white man's domain down South, and hence all this sort of caste system. And then at the end, a lot of people said, well, why did he have to mow down all those people? Because we have to be, remember, he talked about killing people and doing stuff in World War I. And the enemies were very clearly defined. And these enemies that come and attack them at night are a little bit more nuanced, because some of them are old friends and some of their motivations maybe are a little more in that gray area. But these bad people coming back the next morning to do precisely what they called the guy on the day before, saying, now, don't you be coming back and thinking you're taking this back after I paid you. They do that anyhow, and he just mows them down. And it's not only cathartic, but it's absolutely in keeping in mind, like, this is what I learned in Chicago. This is the Chicago way. This is what I learned from Capone, where it's very specific and very delineated, and I know where the bad guys really are.
Well, it's also I don't remember the line. I'm sure it'll come to me I'll see it again when I watch it again, because I can't wait to see this movie again. But when the Moors are driving with Sammie early on, he's like, "So what was it like in Chicago?" Because there's so much in this film as far as the fabric of it that talks about the mythic North, of where people are free and everything's great, instead of being in the South where everything sucks. And Smoker Stack says, it's a really clever line, but it's like, Chicago is just like Mississippi, except there's something funny, I can't remember, but it basically taller buildings.
Yep.
Yes.
It's just like Mississippi, except taller buildings. Yeah.
Right. So essentially, it's kind of better, maybe aesthetically, but it's things are still messed up all over the place. The scene where they first meet Slim, and he's offered Stack offers him the beer. It's the Irish beer, and he's never tasted anything except corn whiskey, and he takes it, and it's just this magical thing. I think there's a comic cut to him performing and everything, because he's agreed to do it for a case of beer. And you realize just how much we take for granted now. Like, if I want an Irish beer, I could go to Whole Foods or a local bar or something, to get any kind of beer that I want. But not only was that not true back then, because the world wasn't so interconnected, but it was also, socially, you just couldn't get that stuff. You had to settle for the cheap crap that you could, scrounge around for. So yeah, there's so much going on here that you could appreciate this as sort of a vampire movie, but it's also a rich historical, dare I say, romantic crime drama. So yeah, I think closing thoughts, because it's getting kind of late. Sure. And I want to give folks, if we missed anything, I'm sure we could talk about this thing for 6 hours, but anything folks came in here really wanting to talk about, but we didn't get to. Plus, we're going to read some comments, all the comments, I think, by Sujiwa, who's got here early. Wow, he pre-gamed this one.
Yeah. I'll throw one first, just as a name-dropped bouquet. I don't have to spend a lot of time on it because Mark really covered music, but Ludwig Göransson's score is just...
He's going to get the Oscar, I think.
Haunting.
Yeah. His third one in, 6 years?
Yeah. If he wins, it's his third Oscar in 6 years. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Can I also call out the DP, Autumn Durald Akapau? She's the first woman DP to shoot on IMAX in its 58-year history. And the look of that film is incredible. Particularly that
DP too, right?
That shot, and that shot with the past and the future and the Hendrix, or that kind of stuff.
That was a winner, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a winner. It was a winner.
That's a set piece that they will be showing for many, many years to come.
It was a winner. It took them, I think they mentioned, was it 3 days for that one shot that they did that over with the rehearsals and everything that they had. But it also, that added a little bit of, they're not afraid to work some humor into this, which is something else that I think gets lost in films like this, the character-driven ones that are dramatic, or even the horror. I think they work in just enough humor to where it felt like natural humor. It wasn't You know, it,
Yeah.
it felt, the humor felt like what people would say. And that's the thing, is the dialogue in this film felt authentic. These conversations felt real. And they weren't the conversations you're normally used to hearing in, say, if it's a quote unquote horror film, which this is much more than that, but it's far more realistic dialogue than what you would hear in a more standard horror film. And that's not to knock my horror films by any means. I love my horror film, but this film is more than just that. And that dialogue helps sell these characters, which makes their deaths all the more brutal. You know, especially our shopkeeper and his wife. Oh my God.
Oh, well, I just want to touch on that dance sequence where it's kind of set up in some dialogue earlier on about the music can, show you the past, the present, and the future. So we do get some future, some hip hop, some turntables and things. What would have made this perfect? And I think the best film of the decade is if they'd shown the far future, and you get, I think Clarence Clemens is no longer with us, but if you got him in that outfit from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, that's all I'm asking.
That'd be
Party on,
fantasy.
Party on. That would be funny. You know, this could fit in with the world of, and I know it's different, but still in the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" world. These two things could almost exist. Sure. Go ahead,
Sure.
Katie. You were going to say something, Katie? No? Okay. Sorry.
No, that's when I do my comparison. I always say it's like From Dusk Till Dawn meets Brother, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That combo.
Definitely. That's another one I got to watch. That turns 25 this year.
Yeah.
Shut up. Just shut up. Just
sorry. I'm sorry.
God.
Get
Sorry.
him, Mark.
I just report the news. I don't make it. All right. So, yeah. Anything else big that we've missed here?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I know we're doing closing thoughts, but Lee Jun Lee as Grace, her death was my favorite, and I thought the fiercest and the strongest, especially when she's the one who basically bring them on, bring them in, you assholes, because no one's going to go after my kid. That, I mean, just talking about it, and thinking about that when she did what she did, and then where it's I get chills. It's because she's such a lady. She was so cool. But it's when that mama bear comes out, that was amazing. And then also Annie, it's I felt like Grace was that strength in anger, and then Annie was just the heart that it's I'm not going to be one of these things. And everyone's performance was just, no one could be replaced. No one's replaceable. I cannot see a single person that could have done any of those performances any better, which I think that right there in a film is just incredible.
Hard to do.
Top to bottom, I think. And that's something that it did pull me out of the movie a couple of times, but in a good way, because I was sitting there watching this in that crowded IMAX theater thinking, everybody in this film is perfect. It's a warm blanket. I want to turn. Yeah. They did those marathons of Until Dawn last night in a couple of cities around the country where you have to watch that movie 6 times without falling asleep and win $5,000. I feel like I could have taken the Sinners challenge. Why not?
I could have done that challenge. Holy crap!
That. I would get the first one from the Until Dawn, but I would have probably stayed for the Sinners.
And you only have to, I think it's, I would guess to say that Sinners is at least probably an hour longer than Until Dawn. So don't have to sit through it as much. All right. Well, so we're going to breeze through comments. I think Sajiwa already left based on his last one, but we'll talk about it. All right. It's past 8 p.m. in the real time, Eastern New York City time. Where's the show? We started late because of technical difficulties. Sorry. Time zones are not real. Anyway, see you all at 8 p.m. Central. Instead of working, I'll check out this convo for a bit. Thank you, Sajiwa. Alien Romulus was good. There's a reason I did not respond to that thread when you posted that in our email, Sajiwa.
He poked the bear on that one.
I'm still processing.
No, it's not.
I've not seen Andor season 2 eps yet. Neither have I, because I didn't see part 1.
Yep.
That's it for film news. Working on my movie. All right, good.
I just report the news.
And on the computer keyboard over here in New York City, just watched 10 minutes of a video called Sinners Explain. Why would you do that to yourself?
Stop. That's Bush League stuff there. Come on. Yeah.
I hope, well, okay, hold on a second. Mark's got an old-timey hat for the occasion. Yes, he does. I think Suju is going to see this movie anyway, as we'll see in a bit. So
I
sounds like the movie has some Coen Brothers movie aspects to it. We'll see it. Good. Vampire and Jarmusch's vampire movie was also a star musician. Yes, for those who have not seen Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific film.
So good. Vampires are real, European thing. That's why no one travels at night. Okay. And talk to you two on Sunday, Ian and Jeff, when we talk about the art house classic. Proposal.
Okay. HR the movie. Can't wait. Yeah.
Robert Redford has to pay somebody to sleep with.
Art house
You can
classic.
pay me
Talk
$1.
about-
I'll be like,
Talk about science fiction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Especially at the time it was made. Yeah.
Oh, he's
Oh,
a dreamboat, man.
Man.
Yeah.
The year after Sneakers. All right. Well, I think that'll just about do it for us here tonight. We have been Earth's Mightiest Critics talking about Sinners. If you haven't watched it, well, shame on you for watching this far without, turning it off. But if you have seen the movie and you enjoyed this discussion, please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I'm very happy that we were all able to hang out and heap praise on this movie. No dissenters among the group, which is very, very rare for us. But as we've discussed at the beginning of the show, seriously, I think this is 2025 is the year where I discover that I actually like new movies.
All right.
But
I am in. You found your joy. Look at that.
I did. I found my movie,
you only had
my
to kill
joy
those
in
people.
Sinners, Companion, and Novocaine. What the?
What a trio.
Novocaine.
Seriously.
All one needs is a little sin with a companion and Novocaine to take the pain away, I guess.
Ooh.
I like that,
Okay.
Jeff. That was very good. But I'm not going to be doing that. But I am going to outro everybody. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of The Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artist, Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson, and the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast. Got it right this time. Mark the Movie Man Krychek, a.k.a. Exhaust Pipe Movie Man from the Spoiler Room and Special Mark Productions, and Katie Glidewell, the blonde in front. Thank you for hanging out. And as an additional thank you, I just decided this before we jumped on. I'm going to be doing another live stream coming up this Sunday at, we'll call it 3 p.m. Central. We're going to do a live stream. I'm going to bring back Don't Read the Comments. So I've got a few months of comments to catch up on. And it's going to be a celebration of our 5,000 subscribers, which just a milestone that crossed this afternoon. So thank you all for hanging out and for joining us. Join us then. I'll put up a YouTube link for people to join. Oh my gosh, Katie, did you get that at the Sinners screening?
No, I wish. I got this actually at Renfield 2 years ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
Another vampire film.
There's so many, and a lot of them suck, but not this one.
See?
Not this one. Yeah, I know. You see what I did
Or
there?
does it?
But what?
Such a dad
Anyway.
joke.
So much to chew
I know.
over.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah. Hey, speaking of chewing, real quick, did anyone notice the preoccupation with, we'll just say oral in this movie? Like, man, I don't know if it was a taboo thing back in the 30s, but like every couple was talking about, doing the deed down there.
You
crazy.
need that in your
Love
arsenal,
it.
fellas. I'm saying.
I love it.
Hey.
I've heard that complaint
Thank
by
you.
somebody else. Bring it on. Bring more.
Oh,
Thank
It's not a complaint. It's just not strictly an observation. I am a big fan.
Let's go
okay.
back
boy.
in time in 1932.
And now we've
Mississippi.
unraveled.
I'm fine with that. Yeah. That's the only reason why. That's the
Ian,
only
you might
reason.
want
I
to cut
throw
this
from
part
this,
off
right?
for those
Oh
censors.
boy.
Maybe. But
Oh,
anyway,
let's
everybody,
clean this
thank
up here,
you.
guys. Let's
What?
got it. Okay.
See, we cleaned it up. There you go. We literally cleaned it up for YouTube. All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. Next week, we are going to be talking about, maybe even just by myself, I have no idea, Until Dawn, that horror movie that people marathoned last night. I have not seen it yet. I don't know what I'm in for, but we're going to talk about it. So until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much for hanging out, talking about Sinners. And go get yourself to church. Cleanse yourself of this movie. You heathens, you sinners. No, I'm not going to judge. But yeah,
Okay,
good night.
Jose.